Hello, everyone. Welcome into this week's episode of the BGN Instant Reaction Show. I'm Jesse Taylor, and thank God we're celebrating a win. It was a little bit close in the first half, no contest in the second half. The Eagles made their adjustments at halftime, came out, put the game away in LA in what really looked like more of a home game in Los Angeles than it was actually an away game. I'm here, as always, with Rachel behind the glass. Dibes is here with us this week, as well as Shane. We're just going to get right into it, talk about all the good stuff. Should we start? Okay, should we start with the good stuff or the bad stuff? There's not much bad stuff. Do you want to get it out of the way?
It feels like that's what the people always want. So let's get into it.
We can't just be satisfied with 5-0. That's too simple. We don't have anything to talk about if we're just satisfied with 5-0. Shane, we went through this last year. It gets boring if there's nothing to talk about. So it's something that Sam and I have talked about a lot on Babes on Broad, sort of week in and week out. It's a different game every week, right? Any given Sunday, anybody can play any which way. The Eagles now are a team that most other teams have circled on their calendar. This is a team that last year, yes, we thought they were going to be better than the year before. We thought they would win the division, but anything beyond winning the division was just bonus, right? Like we needed to see what they were, and everything clicked last year. So game planning during the week, it's like, okay, this team's pretty good. But now going into this season with the Eagles roster better on paper than it even was last year, we are getting every team's best shot. So like the New England Patriots, bad football team. We got their best shot. It was a pretty good shot. Did not work. The Minnesota Vikings, not a very good football team, are giving their best shot to, right now, the Kansas City Chiefs and also to us week 2. The Commanders, not a good football team, gave us their best shot. So we're getting the best out of some of these teams. So it's going to be more competitive. The first half was competitive, but it seemed like Sean Desai decided to check Eagles Twitter at halftime.
Yeah, maybe is he picking up his coaching tips from Twitter now?
He should.
I don't know. Like
whatever works.
The first half was really frustrating. Like you got Cooper Kupp, who's a top 10 receiver in the NFL, and he's catching passes against Nicholas Morrow, a linebacker who was on your practice squad to start the year, and then against UDFA cornerbacks and Eli Ricks and Mario Goodrich. It's like, get Slayer Bradbury on this guy. But then you see Bradbury getting dusted by Puka Nacua right before half. And it's like, maybe this secondary just isn't really that good. But it was a nice rebound. And they get 31 yards on the garbage drive at the end of the game there. But their drives in the second half, 16 yards, 28 yards, 17 yards, 3 yards. Like never threatened to score. Mm-hmm. I thought it was going to be a shootout at halftime, and the Rams get shut out in the second half. And so that's good. That's progress. I'm still really concerned about this secondary long-term, but I did like what I saw in the second half.
Dibes, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. It was a tale of two halves, just like you said, Jess. The Eagles definitely adjusted. I can't wait to look at the all-22 after this one. Roby and everything that they did. But you saw the Eagles really start to get pressure to Matthew Stafford. If Stafford hits Higbee on that route up the middle, we could have a different narrative going down right now. So just kudos to this Eagles defensive line. Kudos to Brian Johnson kind of adjusting. I thought they did a much better job running the football, controlling time of possession. They really shut down Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua in that second half. If you look at Cooper Kupp, he had 5 receptions and 56 yards on the opening drive. Nacua and Kupp in the first half, 160 yards combined, 2 touchdowns. In the second half, 6 targets, 20 total yards, 0 touchdowns. You look at this Rams offense, they were efficient in the first half, 6.5 yards per play. In the second half, they averaged 2.6 yards per play. On third down, the Rams were 2 of 6. One of them was a face mask by Zach Cunningham. This Eagles defense stepped up in a big way. Again, there's a lot to dissect here. I thought Slay, Bradbury, Job, across the board were horrible in the first half. But wow, Jalen Hurts, the offense, A.J. Brown, They took care of business in the second half and were 5-0.
Yeah, I mean, I think it didn't look good. It looked like another one where we were going to be sitting on the edge of our seats and watching like this until the clock hit 0, right? Like it looked like what we were going to see the entire game. And whatever they did at halftime, whether it was Sean Desai checking his Twitter or them just actually figuring it out themselves, they were unbelievable in the second half. They actually started getting a little bit more pressure on Matthew Stafford. And you said it, that if he hits Tyler Higbee on that slant over the middle, we are talking about a totally different game. But the amount of pressure that they were able to generate in the second half, which they were not getting in the first half, really was able to screw up what the Rams were doing on offense, and they were not able to adjust on the fly to this Eagles defensive front.
Yeah, that's the difference, right? Like last week, we saw kind of the same story. There's some similar kind of vibes, similar themes with Brian Johnson and not being aggressive in the red zone. We'll get there. But like this defensive line, they weren't really getting home against Sam Howell against the Commanders. Correct me if I'm wrong, Shane, but I thought Josh Sweat, Jalen Carter, they were in that, especially in that second half, they were all over Matthew Stafford, man. That was the difference. The front four getting pressure consistently was the difference. And I think that was really, truly what took out Cooper Kupp. And yeah, the Eagles got lucky on a few plays. And there were some bonehead mistakes. You talked about the face masks. There definitely some, the drop interception. We won by 2 scores. It could have been even worse had some of the second half mistakes not happened because, Jalen Hurts missed a wide open Quez Watkins in the end zone. You had another face mask by Reed Blankenship. Nicholas Morrow dropped an interception that hit the ground. You had Josh Sweat strip Nakua on a 3rd and 10, and all Nicholas Morrow needs to do is fall on the football, and he can't do that. There were missed opportunities. And that just speaks to how much the Eagles truly dominated in the second half.
Yeah.
In Jalen's defense, I'm not throwing that ball to Quez Watkins either.
No, he probably would drop it anyway, right?
Yeah.
Jalen's defense, I don't hold that against him even remotely.
That's what I said that on Twitter. Is like the announcers are saying that he missed Watkins. He could have just seen Watkins and been like, I think this contested catch ball on the run to Devonta Smith with nowhere to go, that's got a higher probability of a completion than throwing it to Quez Watkins.
In the wide open in the back of the end zone.
I mean, I saw something on Twitter earlier this week. I could not tell you who it was from, but I know Quez Watkins has been hurt, but like, what has he done that he should have been inserted right back into the game plan the way he was, instead of just letting it ride out with Olamide Zaccheaus?
Nothing.
Why? Like, I don't understand why that was the logic there. But I personally, if that was my decision, I would not have just put Quez Watkins right back in there. I know he was hurt, and that's why he wasn't in there. But it's been working and working well, and I would venture to say that Zaccheaus would not have dropped that ball.
What the Eagles like about Quez Watkins is his speed, which brings field stretching ability. But I mean, the problem is that's pretty redundant when A.J. Brown has just become your deep ball guy, or Devonta Smith. I mean, either one of those guys have been really good downfield. But then beyond that, the screen pass on 3rd down, like you're down in the red zone, you're not able to threaten as a field stretcher because there's no field to stretch. And Watkins doesn't run good routes. He doesn't play through contact well. So like, even if you're not going to make Olamide Zaccheaus your primary, your wide receiver 3, you should at least be using Olamide Zaccheaus in the red zone and using Quez Watkins when you're, midfield or further away.
Yeah. I'm looking at the stats here. Quez Watkins has 4 receptions for 21 yards this year. The dude is a deep threat. What are we like? He shouldn't even be on the football field, to be honest. Like, I'd rather just throw Zaccheaus in there as for his run blocking. He's playing the role of Oz, and I don't understand it one bit.
I think there was something, I forget what it was. Was it Zaccheaus had? Was it 69 yards last week or in the last 2 games? And I think Quez has like 65 yards in the last 9 games total or something like that. Like, I don't understand why that was an immediate switchback. I just felt like that was unnecessary. And this comment's absolutely correct. Like, the bubble screen was enough. Like, you have one of the biggest wide receivers in AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, who is like weirdly a really good blocking wide receiver, even though that should never be his like number one thing, but he's weirdly very good at blocking. I mean, get the first down, get upfield. What are you doing? And also, if you're out there for speed, you should be faster than that man coming after you and still get the first down. Figure it out.
Yeah, I don't need to see Quez Watkins anymore. I'm really glad that he's on the last year of his contract and he'll be playing on a different football team next year.
I've got about 20 wide receivers scouted in 2024. So count that as a lock for the Eagles in day 2, day 3.
I can't wait to hear all about it. Okay, so while we're on the offense, because I think we pretty much we exhausted our issues with the defense. Our issues with the offense. I thought this week, I will say the opening drive of the game, personally, I thought was Brian Johnson's best drive of the season. The red zone play calling is still abysmal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's time for Nick Sirianni to take over red zone play calling.
Yes.
And I think Brian Johnson's doing a good job until you get to the red zone.
Yes.
There's a lot of people that are frustrated with Brian Johnson on the whole, and I don't agree with that. I think he's done a good job. I thought he did a spectacular job today.
Today was
until
really
you
good.
Get to the red zone. And I don't know, like anecdotally, I haven't charted this out, but anecdotally, I feel like they go super pass happy in the red zone and it doesn't work out. But even down like the last drive, and I'm totally fine with you playing for a field goal because you're up 6. Going up 9 with 6 minutes left is huge. It's a 2-possession game. Field goal or touchdown is not that big of a deal. Like, I'd like the touchdown, but I'm okay with kicking a field goal. But to have ridden DeAndre Swift down to the red zone, and then on first down, you call a QB draw, not from empty where you're spreading them out, with a running back in the backfield where they're all in the box because they think you're going to run anyways. There's no reason to get your quarterback hit. Second down, you hand it off to Kenny Gainwell, who, if we check the box score, Kenny Gainwell today averaged what? 2.4 yards per carry, and he gets nothing, shockingly. Then you call a timeout, and you come out with yet another QB run with a running back in the back. Like, I'm fine running it. Hand the ball to DeAndre Swift. He's your best runner. There's no reason. You have resisted getting Jalen Hurts hit all season. Why? With a game almost totally on ice, are you calling 2 design QB runs? And not even like, this isn't going empty and they spread out and we check to it at the line. This was your play call. That's stupid play calling. And it's not just that. That's just the most recent one that got me really fired up. But it's time for Nick Sirianni to take over red zone play calling.
Yeah, I don't understand it. Like, what's the point of bringing in Rashad Penny, a guy that could absolutely move the chains in that kind of situation? At what point do the Eagles need to see or say enough is enough with Gainwell in these red zone situations? The Eagles were their success rate last year was 68% in the red zone. Coming into this week, it was 46%. They were the 26. The Rams coming into this with their red zone defense was 26th best red zone defense at 70%. The Eagles were 2 of 6. 2 of 6 today. That's not good enough. I completely agree with Shane. There needs to be adjustments. Swift, like going to Quez on that bubble screen was a freaking joke. I don't know if that was in the red zone or what, but like the play calling has been atrocious. Like, how many drives today did we see 75-yard drives, 6, 7, 8-minute drives, and just go nowhere as soon as they hit the 20, 10-yard line?
Probably 4.
4.
The 4 where they did not score. They were 2 for 6 in the red zone. We saw 4 of those drives.
The Eagles had a 15-play, 56-yard field goal drive, a 7-play, 75-yard interception drive, 17-play, 83 yards for a field goal, 10 plays, 72 yards for a field goal.
Jake Elliott is the season MVP so far, and you cannot change my mind.
I have bet and will continue to bet until they change the lines. Jake Elliott over 1.5 field goals. It was down to like negative 160 this week. They can make it negative 350, and I will bet that every single week until Nick Sirianni takes over red zone play calling.
Let me ask you this. How many points did the New York Football Giants score today? Because does Jake Elliott still have more points on the season than all of the New York Football Giants as a whole?
They scored 16, but I'm not sure what that total tally is at right now.
How many did Jake have today? 12?
He had, what was it?
Because it might be.
I'll find it.
It was 48. It was 48-46. So Jake had 48. The Giants
had 3 field goals. So 9 there, 2 touchdowns, so 10, 11.
11. I can't do that math in my head that fast. 46 plus 16 is 62. 48 plus 11 is 50. Okay, so they've scored one more field goal more than Jake Elliott has scored. Congratulations to the New York Football Giants on your moral victory of the week.
Didn't Daniel Jones go out with an injury today? I could be wrong.
He got hurt today. Who were they playing? The Miami
Dolphins.
Who did not look very good, and they still probably lost. Here's an interesting question, though. Has nothing. Well, I mean, it does have to do with the Eagles, but one of the comments that we have down here is, I don't care who wins, but who do we want to lose more tonight? The 49ers or the Cowboys?
Oh, it's easy.
Can both teams lose?
Wait, you say it's easy, Dives. Which way do you lean? Who do you think? Who is it better to win tonight?
Well, who is it better or who do I want? Those are two different things. I want the
works.
I want the Niners to lose because I hate the Niners so much. That is a game I've circled on my calendar since the schedule release. They're insufferable. And they need to be punched in the mouth a little bit. I'm not worried about the Cowboys one bit. So for me, it's got to be the Niners.
Yeah, I think it's better. I mean, the goal is get the 1 seed. And so I think it's better for the Eagles if the Cowboys win tonight. But either way, like if the Cowboys win tonight, the Eagles have a game on the 1 seed. And if the 49ers win, the Eagles are undefeated with the 2-game lead in the division. So like either outcome is good. Exactly. But I do think it would be slightly better for Eagles fans if the Cowboys win tonight.
I don't know. There's nothing in my being that will ever let me be like, yeah, I want that team with the star to come out on top. There's nothing about the way that I was raised that will.
Can I interest you in a 2-0 game where Dak throws 7 interceptions but wins?
That you can interest me in. That I will take. That will bring me a lot of joy, actually, in a weird way, even though it's a Cowboys win. All right, so through 5 games, the Eagles are 5-0. We've screamed about something every week because it's not a pretty 5-0, and they still have not played their best football. However, we keep saying they haven't even played their best football, and there's still so much they can improve on, and this. How long do we give it? How many weeks do we give it before we cut the crap and say, okay, maybe this is just what they are and what we have to live with?
1 more, because then they play the Dolphins, and you're going to find out real quick.
But do you really do you think the Dolphins are that legit? Did you see the way they played against the New York Football Giants today?
Well, I didn't get to watch that one, but I think they're a pretty good team.
How many interceptions did Tua end up throwing? At least 2.
Yeah. I don't know. I was camping this weekend, and I was driving back during the early games, so I didn't get to watch them, but I'll have to check it out later.
I give them at least a few, because you look at that schedule, the Chiefs, the Cowboys, the Bills, the Niners, the Cowboys, the Seahawks. That's the stretch. I think that's like week 12, something around there. So I give them a couple more weeks with Jalen Hurts and Brian Johnson to keep getting on the same page, running more 12 personnel, getting better in those RPOs. There have been flashes for Jalen Hurts today, especially with his legs. Like, he made some great throws. It's just not been all there through 4 quarters. There's been some frustrating mistakes on both sides of the football field. So, how many penalties did they have today? They cleaned up the penalties today, at least, because they had 11 last week. So I'm glad to see that get better. I thought the pass protection was much better today. Correct me if I'm wrong, Shane. What do you think?
Yeah. I thought Jalen Hurts had all day to throw. The Eagles only had three penalties for 35 yards. One of them was a totally bogus face mask on that 3rd and 26. But cleaned the penalties up. Thought pass protection was good. I mean, I thought it's nice to see Hurts running again. And now I want him to chill a little bit. Like, let's find that happy medium. I thought we got a little too run and take hits happy there. I thought he's still bailing from pockets he should not be leaving.
Yeah.
But if he is willing to run the ball when he does that, it's no longer a negative. Like, that's what I kind of talked about on the EPA podcast this week is he was doing this last year. He was just willing to run. And so you took the good with the bad and it's a net good, but he hadn't been running this year. He'd been going down, avoiding contact, which is good for longevity, but it makes that leaving the pocket stick out more. He's still doing it. He started to run a little bit. I wonder if it's road game that's tight. And so you're doing that and we back off of that. I would like to think yes, but then we're dialing up QB draws, like I said, at the end of the game. So I don't really know what we're doing on that. But it was also really nice to see Dallas Goedert get involved in the passing game.
Thank God.
I mean,
Amen.
I talked about this week, like name a Rams linebacker. And you just watched him play and you probably still can't do it. Like Dallas Goedert, that should have been a Dallas Goedert game, and it was. He ends up 8 receptions, 117 yards, and a touchdown. And there was a really good play that I didn't get the clip out because I was getting another one out, and Twitter was being really slow posting clips. But it was a blitz, and there's a free runner coming, and Hurts and Goddard both identified that, and Goddard just like took 2 steps and turned around, and Hurts hits him, and you get 6 yards against a blitz. And that's not something the Eagles did previously. And I thought early in the game, especially Hurts was really good at getting up to the line, using his cadence to get the defense to tip where the pressure was coming from and then adjusting. And that's the strides that I want to see the offense make. If you just don't watch the red zone, the offense is so much better the last 2 games than it was last season. Now, you have to watch the red zone because you have to score in the red zone, and hopefully they figure that out. But between the 20s, I really like what I've seen from the Eagles the last 2 weeks.
I really like that. I mean, Dallas Goedert had his best game of the year, no question. But also, like, one of my favorite plays from Goddard today was 3rd, 4th quarter. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it was a 3rd and 5, and he had an amazing block that opened up a giant hole for DeAndre Swift for 17 yards. That was a massive, massive play for the Birds. And you know, that was a play that I remember was Dallas Goedert not just getting it done as a receiver, but he's played a lot of snaps this year. And it's good to see him finally get his due because he's running routes. The ball's just not coming to him, and the Eagles just completely neglect the middle of the field. We saw them kind of attack the middle of the field today, and then that's a good thing.
Yeah, they're really starting to expand a little bit further, and you're starting to see everything get a little bit more confident as the weeks go on, but you need to see it consistently. Like, you need to be able to still get the ball to, you know, obviously, you know, the networks are trying to make something out of nothing, right? Like, you see like Devontae Smith walk up the sideline. You see Nick Sirianni standing there talking to him. And again, they've all kind of said, and Devontae Smith is no different. You know, we had this conversation last year when, you know, AJ Brown went off in the first week and then Devontae Smith came back and had the 100-yard game the next week. There are so many places that the Eagles can attack the offensive side of the field that one week it's just not going to be your day. You're just not going to have the same amount of same numbers that you had the week before. That was a Devontae Smith type of day today. But if they can figure out a way to still get Devontae Smith a little bit more involved than he was today, then this offense, the way that they played today, and you can incorporate that a little bit more, plus cleaning up the red zone issues, that's the offense that's going to, you know, carry you through the rest of the season and be really, really successful.
Yeah. This is not a gambling podcast, but if you're so inclined, Devonta Smith over receiving yards next week is going to be a great bet because he was frustrated today. The Eagles have made it a point to get that guy involved early next week. Sauce Gardner is going to be on AJ Brown. Devonta Smith over. I don't know what it's going to be set at, but that one definitely one I'm going to look at. And also wanted to mention, last year Hassan Reddick started the year slow, right? Got his first sack of the year against Washington. Got 2 the next week. Like, we're on the same arc this year. Now, Washington was a week later this year, but he gets his first sack against Washington, goes back-to-back sacks in this game. Now, Yes, the last one was against a backup right tackle. He got chip blocked and was like running parallel to the ground and really ices that game. I know there was still gameplay after that, like 5 minutes, but after that, after he got started last year, he only had 3 games where he didn't get a sack last season, which one of those was week 17. So hopefully we see Hassan Reddick start to go on a tear. I think he's played better than people give him credit for. They're just used to seeing the sacks, but Josh Sweat and Hassan Reddick both playing really good, even though they're not racking up a ton of sacks right now.
And Jalen Carter now with 3.5 sacks in 5 games. 3.5 sacks. Do you remember talking about this before the season, Shane? Like our sack prediction for Jalen Carter. The guy's blowing every projection out the window, man. It's amazing how amazing Jalen Carter is. Week after week after week delivering. I think he had, 2 sacks today?
Yeah, 2 sacks. And
2 sacks.
I forget. I looked the stat up. I forget what it was exactly now, but it's something like out of all the first round defensive tackles in the last decade, only 2 of them have gotten over 5. It's either 5 or over 6. I can't remember sacks their rookie season. One of them was Aaron Donald.
I was going to say one of them has to be Aaron Donald.
And I think the other one was like Duron Payne or Jonathan. It was somebody, one of the Commanders guys. I can't remember which one.
One of those guys that they have down there. Yeah. One of my favorite video clips until the end of time will probably be the Chicago Bears war room fist bumping like 4th round draft pick instead of Jalen Carter. Good work, guys. Like
Jalen Carter had 4 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, 2 quarterback hits. Aaron Donald had 4 tackles, and that's it.
Ed Oliver.
I can't stop smiling, guys. I can't stop smiling.
It was okay. So here's the stat: every first round defensive tackles in the last decade, Ed Oliver had 5, Duron Payne had 5, Aaron Donald had 9. Those are the only 3 guys with 5 or more sacks as a rookie.
He's special, man. He's special. The second one he had where he threw Stafford down, his acceleration twitch off the line of scrimmage, man. It's just different. It's just different.
And while we are on the topic of defensive tackles and Aaron Donald, and another interesting stat, Jeff Stoutland as the Aaron Donald eraser. Aaron Donald in 5 games against the Philadelphia Eagles has 0 sacks, 1 tackle for loss, and 6 quarterback hits in 5 games against the Eagles. And the Eagles started backup interior offensive linemen in multiple of those games, today being one of them.
It's incredible.
I don't know.
I think they say the Eagles are one of 2 teams he's never got a sack against. I can't remember who they said the other one was, but yeah.
Parsons has played 3 games against the Philadelphia Eagles. He's only got half a sack. I don't understand it. Whether it's Jeff Stoutland or what, but they always seem to have a game plan. They always seem to have a game plan against these elite pass rushes, man. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And I will say it's going to be interesting to face the Jets next week as well, because the Jets are feeling themselves a little bit after beating the Broncos. And after, that was their Super Bowl, just beating Sean Payton after all the trash that he was talking.
I had a meme ready to go for after the Jets won this game of Sean Payton looking angry on the sideline with the headline, "Sean Payton can't hack it." I was just hoping they would lose so I could tweet it, and they did. So, yay me.
Nice.
So I have to point out one other thing here before we get into 3 words and all
Please.
that, because I mean, we're going to bring it up and talk about it, but
Special teams?
I mean, that punter for the Rams looks pretty good, doesn't he? 7th round draft pick out there punting the ball 60 yards, 4.5 seconds of hang time.
What's your point?
All I'm saying, just get me a punter.
You want Howie to use one of his 15 draft picks on a punter?
Yes.
Okay.
Just go get me a punter.
You heard
I don't even know that guy's name. I've never heard his name before, but go get me that guy.
That guy. Okay. You heard it here first. Howie Roseman, please draft a punter. See, you're going to send Howie right back into a spiral, and he's going to take a punter in the 2nd round and send the whole city ablaze.
Then we're deleting all of these, so nobody blames me for it.
Jalen Hurts also has not been showing lots of emotion, as he typically doesn't. He's not a he is very stone-faced all the time. Last week, we saw some really serious emotion from him after that touchdown to AJ Brown, the second one, because he finally, I think, felt like some things were clicking. And usually he starts kind of like talking to Eagles fans and firing up the crowd a little bit when he runs off. There is a video clip of him leaving the field today where he's sort of like, you can tell he's like, I'm back a little bit and he's feeling good. So I would love to see him go on a tear as well and just be himself. All right. So while we're talking about Twitter and clips and Shane's memes and
Ethan Evans, that's the punter's name. It's from Wingate. It's literally the second player they've ever had drafted. I don't even know what state Wingate is in. I've never heard of it before.
Could you let me know how many punters were even drafted this year? Like, do you even have that information? Because
I think it was like 3.
And do you think any of the punters from like the big name schools get drafted, or are they just like, are they most like UDFAs?
I don't know. I'm gonna start grinding out punter film just for the memes.
This comment is unbelievable. Knowing Howie, he'd find some punter who never played football before and has only ever done Mongolian goat kicking or some shit, and then he becomes the best kicker in the league. And with that, I wish we could just say, and with that, go Birds, goodbye. We have to get to 3 words, but then
you can read it again at the end if you want to.
I might have to read it again to sign us off with that one. But let's bring
I was right, by the way. 3 punters drafted this year.
That's unbelievable. And next year, Howie's at least going to be drafting 1 if Shane gets what he wants. All right, so let's bring in Rachel. We'll talk about the Times is like, absolutely not. We'll talk about the 3 words. Who's getting fired? Let us know who's getting fired.
We almost made it through the whole episode without anybody getting fired, but I did just see one pop up, Brian Johnson. And so, I mean, no surprise there. Somebody also asked that they leave Quez Watkins there.
That's fine.
No surprise there at all. Somebody asked to trade for Patrick Surtain. So that was interesting. A pretty complete game, red zone offensive troubles, stress-free win, ? I asked Dives before we started streaming if he was stressed. I mean, not as much stress for me personally compared to last week, but what were you guys' levels, Jess and Shane?
So my biggest stressor is being concerned about my friend Sam and the Eagles sending her into labor by stressing her out. So I was just like, oh God, Eagles, please get this together because I don't contracting and have to rush to the hospital because you're sending her into labor. She's not in labor. Everything was fine. The Eagles scoring a touchdown right before the half, she said she was able to relax. So that helped me relax. The first half, I was a little bit stressed and I was like, Jesus Christ, we're going to be in a shootout here. And the shootout doesn't concern me. It's the defense just needing to make the one stop. That's what was concerning enough to me in the first half. But I mean, Sean Desai pulled his head out of his butt and so did the rest of the secondary. So I was not nearly as stressed this week as I had been the last 4 weeks, really. I was calm at the end of the game.
Yeah, the Eagles were pretty firmly in control that whole second half. I thought I was preparing myself for like a barn burner at halftime. I did a quick halftime show with Dives, and I was like, Eagles can't punt the whole second half or they're going to lose the game. Like, you're going to have to score every possession. That's what I was preparing myself for. So I was glad that it didn't turn into that.
It started kind of crazy, man. You had the face mask. You had the interception in that second half. There were times at the start of that third quarter especially that it was a little hairy, but you look at the Eagles running backs the last 3 series, 14 carries for 71 yards, 5 yards per carry, man. Kudos to the Birds.
And they were just
feels like it doesn't
possession, which was also like, that was the other thing. Like, even if they weren't walking away with points every single time or a touchdown every single time, the way that they were dominating the time of possession, if they were just able to keep sort of adding little chunks, even if they weren't 6, they were able to keep adding little chunks here and there. There was no way the Rams were going to be able to catch them because of the way that they dominated time of possession. What was it? At one point at the beginning of the fourth quarter, it was like 34 minutes to like 17. There's no contest there.
Yeah, it ended up being just under 38 minutes 37-55 to 22-05 time of possession.
No contest.
Yeah.
I'm going to need the Eagles to give the ball to their opponents more frequently so Jalen Carter can break the rookie sack record.
Amen, brother.
If the offense can stay on the field that long, they come out fresh, there's no question in my mind he could. What is it, 9? We talked about 9?
Well, so in the last 10 years for defensive tackles, it's 9 with Aaron Donald.
So
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure what the all-time rookie record is. I'm sure it would be an edge rusher.
NFL rookie
Keep
sack.
him fresh. Keep him fresh because he's going to be a huge.
Javon Curse, 14 and a half sacks in 1999, but that's not a defensive tackle.
Okay,
NFL rookie. How do we defensive tackle? Most sacks by defensive tackle in their rookie season.
I'm not sure how to find that. I'll have to try to look around.
I would say I'm going to have to work a little bit harder because it's still giving me Javon Curse.
Yeah. He was most definitely not a defensive tackle.
No. Okay, so Brian Johnson's getting fired. Anybody else getting fired or being left in California?
No. Just somebody said need more touchdowns, and then everything else. Oh, somebody said trade for Buddha. But other than that, rehire Shane Steichen.
I mean, yeah. Have you seen what he's doing in Indy? I would love Shane Steichen to walk back through that door. And that's not even a slight to Brian Johnson. Brian Johnson would love Shane Steichen to walk back through that door.
I don't think there's many people that wouldn't love Shane Steichen to walk back through that door. Jonathan Gannon, however, he can stay where he is. He's fine. Pew, pew, pew. I just can't.
We need that soundbite in our StreamYard that we can just play.
We definitely need it. I'm going to find it.
I have it. I can send it to you.
Okay.
Please. And you know what? I don't even want to know when it's coming up. I just need someone to hit a button so it just comes up every now and then to keep us going throughout this.
I got you.
I mean, the Eagles are 5-0. There are some things that are, frustrating here and there, but today was probably the closest thing to a complete game on both sides of the ball that they have played. It was not a full 4 quarters, granted, but it was the closest thing I think that they've had on both offense and defense to being at the best level that they could be at so far. Like this, I think that second half was probably their best performance to date.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that. You would like to string that whole game together at some point, and that hasn't happened yet. But as long as you can do it as long as you can play like even football and then put it away in a second half, and the Eagles seem to be really good at putting it away in the second half. So no problems there on my end. I love just seeing the Eagles like grind the game out and just like squash their opponent's souls. It's great.
Yeah, we definitely saw the Eagles get better in pass protection this week. I'm kind of shocked they didn't really commit to the run until late in the third quarter. But at the end of the day, the Eagles are cleaning up the red zone offense away from being a top 5, top 3 offense. That's they're putting up yards, they're putting up points, and it's scary to think how good this Eagles offense could be if they start getting home once in the red zone. So that'll get cleaned up. They didn't play anything in the preseason. They're 5-0. What you'd like to see as well is this Eagles pass rush continually getting better. Jalen Carter, Josh Sweat had a game. Hassan Reddick. If this is kind of a pattern, the fact that we have Hassan Reddick starting to cook these last 2 weeks, we all know what that means for opposing offenses. So that is a huge development. So overall, if this defensive line can continue to cook, it'll help the Eagles secondary, give them some time to figure things out because Bradbury, Slay, there are definitely signs that I'm not okay with. That these guys are making significant amount of money. And I think we all agree that they should be better. So it's all progress. What you want to see is progress as we get into the meat of this Eagles schedule. And I think we're seeing it. I definitely think we're seeing it top to bottom.
Yeah. AJ Brown said, last week he said, who wants to be playing their best football in October? And he's right. And that's, you have to be playing your best football as it gets into that December and January timeframe. And we go through it every year, nationally watching, everyone talks a little bit here and there. Should we be worried about the Kansas City Chiefs? Every year around this point, that's a topic of conversation. I think it was Mina Kimes who came on and goes, I love this being a yearly tradition of me coming in and saying, no one should be worried about the Kansas City Chiefs in October. And if the Eagles continue to improve, they're going to be on the same wavelength. That if the Kansas City Chiefs are obviously they're the standard of the NFL, right? Like it's what every offense aspires to sort of be in some capacity because they're the best offense in the NFL. So, no, the Eagles don't want to be playing their best football in October. And if we're worried about the Eagles, this much at 5-0 in October, I don't really know what to tell you if you're that concerned about one of the two remaining undefeated teams in the NFL. And, if you two get your way, it'll be the only undefeated team in the NFL by 11 o'clock.
And it could be so much worse. Like, I can't wait to tune into all the national coverage tomorrow because this was a challenge for the Eagles, especially like the secondary. And I thought that there was going to be so much more damage when it came down to Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. And so, yeah, Cooper Kupp, like he looked good in his regular season debut after his injury, but it could have been so much worse. And so they do deserve credit with this banged up secondary that's just a weakness and continues to struggle. Like, to be able to limit them as much as they did in the second half is impressive. And so the concerns that the Eagles really have, red zone offense and like the secondary, I feel like compared to some of the other teams, it could just be so much worse.
It could be so much worse.
The Eagles also beat the Rams with Cooper Kupp by more than the 49ers beat him. Like, the Rams are a much better team than people thought that they were going to be. They had the second lowest preseason win total in the NFL at 6.5. And I was on the under for that. Like, the Rams were supposed to be awful and they just aren't. And they took the 49ers to a 7-point game. The Eagles beat them by 9. Like, they're a good team. I think there's a pretty good shot the Rams are going to end up in the playoffs.
I can see it.
This was also it doesn't really mean much, but this was an amazing tush push game as well. Like, all the noise that we've heard over the last 8 hours going on with injury data, I'm sure the NFL will be cracking down on Jason Kelce and his helmet coming off and all that bullshit. But the Eagles finished 13 of 18 on third down. How many tush pushes did we have in this one? At least a handful, right?
By the way, like, next level thinking by Nick Sirianni and Brian Johnson to call the tush push on 3rd and 3 and then on 4th and 2 to fail 2 times. Like, the game's over. Just bring that success rate down. And then at the end of the year, you can be like, it only worked 60% of the time. Like, I think they should start in game. Other teams kneel the ball. I think the Eagles should put Marcus Mariota in and run tush pushes instead of kneel downs. Just bring that success rate down anytime you get the opportunity.
It was at 92.5 to start the day, the success rate for the Philadelphia Eagles on the tush push. I will also say, I am on record. I tweeted this, and I absolutely mean it. If the Eagles win the Super Bowl, I will absolutely get brother shove tattooed on my body.
Yeah.
That's not a joke. I will 100% do that. And also because they're probably going to outlaw it after the season. If the Eagles just run it all over everybody and win a freaking Super Bowl based on the goddamn brotherly shove, you bet your ass I'm getting that tattooed on my body forever. And it is what it is. And I don't even care. How many my favorite part about it is, though, how much people are complaining about it, and then the Eagles just go out and do it, especially when they go out and line up in it. And the Rams were like, no, timeout. We need to fix it.
Yeah.
Back out, and they just line up in it again and still get it.
It's also hilarious that, as someone who watches college football religiously, I've seen the tush push probably about 20 times the last few weeks. Every team is doing it. Everywhere.
Team's doing it.
Everywhere.
It's not my fault that the other 31 quarterbacks are weak and can't squat 600 pounds. Jalen Hurts doesn't even need to be pushed. His tree trunk legs do it themselves.
I know. Get some protein shakes or something. I don't.
Lift a weight.
Get your weight up.
as someone who lifts weights religiously and drinks protein shakes, and it doesn't make a difference, I'm offended by these comments. You would never know it.
Listen, just because the other 31 quarterbacks are not as good as Jalen Hurts does not mean that he should be. They just need to get rid of it. Like, what do you mean? Oh, I'm sorry. You know what? These little slant routes to Cooper Kupp, they're happening too much. They're too successful. They're not allowed to do those anymore.
Yeah,
I said earlier today,
90% of their offense.
The Giants got a guy hurt, two guys hurt on a failed attempt last week, and or Thursday, whatever it was, last week on Monday night, they played the Monday night game. And so that was the whole thing. Like the league was looking into it or whatever. I was like, if we're just going to ban things other teams are bad at, we can go ahead and ban that for the for the Giants. We might as well ban hiring head coaches for the Commanders. They're really bad at that. And let's just ban divisional playoff games for the Cowboys because they're really bad at those. So
really bad.
There was the one replay when Kelsey's helmet fell off. They slowed it down, and they're dogs, man. Like they are, and like when they get low, and you saw Kelsey and Dickerson and Opeta, like they were just ripping people apart. They moved like 3 or 4 yards. It wasn't like a yard. They just pushed the entire line forward like a rugby match.
That's the crazy part. It's not even like a yard or inches. They're getting these by a mile. It's not even remotely close. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. Okay, I can't read that comment again because there was another comment in here about Cooper Kupp that if you didn't see that and see me with my head in my hands laughing, you need to go back and watch that clip because my God, that was funny. I'm not reading that out loud.
No, don't read that. It was good.
I'm not reading it, but if you watch this on YouTube, it was like 6 minutes ago. It's like the 40-minute mark. Go take a look. It'll make you laugh. But the Eagles are 5-0. We somehow still figured out a way to talk for 45 minutes, even though there really isn't that much bad to talk about. But we will be back next week to debrief on the whole matchup with the Jets. We'll see how that goes, how Zach Wilson plays, how Sauce Gardner plays over A.J. Brown. If they get Devontae Smith involved, as we were all talking about, we'll see what that looks like. But as of right now, the Eagles are 5-0. Maybe by the end of the night tonight, they'll be the only undefeated team left in the NFL. We'll see. The Tush Push is still successful. The Eagles are better than your team. I'm sorry. Not that sorry. The Phillies play tomorrow. All the vibes in Philadelphia are good. Don't turn on the Sixers. It'll just make you sad probably. But other than that, we will talk to you next week. Thanks for joining us. For myself, Dibes, Shane, and Rachel. Go Birds, and we will talk to you next week.